the place I grew up in, the first place where my family all lived under the same roof, was, if you can just see that stairwell there, where those bushes are to the right, there was an old slum dwelling right there called Battersea Bridge Buildings, long before they built this fancy bunch. And I think I moved in there when I was about 3 or 4, and left when I was 11. And we'll walk over there, shall we?
Yeah, let's take a walk.
Wow. See, when I was a kid, like if I ever had any troubles or anything, this is where I would come and sit here, like right down here. In fact, can you see me from there? In fact, on the day my father left, and I couldn't go back home because my mum was in tears, and I came and sat here. I think it must have been till the early hours of the morning, till it was like freezing cold. And then I went back in and climbed through my bedroom window and back to bed. I know I used to also, to be fair, I would come here most days on my own, especially towards the evening. And then you'd see the boats go by. They still do it now, you know, people have parties on boats and go out the river. I used to love it. I used to sit and watch them go by with music playing. It's great.
And what song, I guess songs, but this inspired?
What songs I remember being down here, and there was a song called "Would You Like to Swing on a Star." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Who was it who sang it? But I remember sitting there once and thinking, I actually had the thought to myself, if you could tie a rope to whatever was the nearest star, it'd have to be really long, and you swang from it, what would the arc be? Like, I was only about 7, and I imagined like you'd just go like out into space on each turn.
What about The Boy in the River?
That was about this part. It was like, as I said earlier, my dad left. It was always leaving, but we knew that this was for the last time. And my mum was in a terrible mess, and it wasn't made any easier for her by the fact that I asked if I could go with him. I felt awful about it, so I couldn't go home. She was crying. So I came down here and I sat probably on that step, or this step right here, till about 2 or 3 in the morning. It was freezing. I just wouldn't go home. And years later, when I was in the Faith Brothers, I did write a song about that very experience called "A Boy in the River." It's a good song. You should check it out. I just thought of something. When I was much older, and my favourite book still to this day is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And it's because I really identified with him because of his kinship with the river, if you like. And because he would do exactly the same thing, you know, when he had stuff that he needed to work out, he'd go and sit by the river and think it through. That's pretty much what I would do, you know? So when we were shooting Tribute This, that was why I said to you guys, could we make that kind of, for me it was like a pilgrimage. You know, go down and see the Mississippi. I think I say in the book somewhere that we were brothers separated only by fiction.
What's your just for the hell of it? What's your thoughts on like the art versus commerce thing? Is it a
Well, I've only ever lived by the art. I've never lived by the if anybody asks me why, it's been that I haven't succeeded more than I have. My simple answer is because I would never take the money. I've yet to do it, you know, and it's not to say I haven't been tempted, but I've certainly turned down quite a few opportunities in my life that would have made me a lot of money and probably a little bit of fame too. But I always say this, that like, I don't really believe, you know, I'm not a religious person, I don't really believe in anything, but I do kind of believe you have a soul, and I think it's represented by what you do. And singing and writing songs is what I do, so therefore that is my soul, and if I sell it, I have nothing.
What was the most recent, I guess, you know,
well, turning down Live Aid when I was in the Faith Brothers, that was the real big one. We were, our live agent was also the agent for Queen and U2 and half the acts that appeared on that bill at Live Aid in '85. And he said, look, I can squeeze you on as the sort of token unknown act, you know, which they still do. I remember Tracy Chapman doing it at big shows. They put her on as a sort of unknown, you know. But my thought on it was this, is that it could only be as a career move, because no one was going to pledge any money because we were on it, because nobody knew who we were. And I don't think I could live with myself if I did it for those reasons alone. So turning that down was tough.
But since then, have you worked out a way, or have you worked through scenarios that would have allowed you to do it? Like, have you worked out justifications where you look back and you go, oh, maybe I could have done it under this or not?
Well, no, not that. And the other one I turned down, and I think I may have told you this story before, is that a publisher got in touch with me and said a major country singer who they wouldn't name but sold shed loads of records wanted to do a cover version of Sleep a Little Easy When It Rains, but they wanted to take the line out that says drink and drugs fail me once again. And it wasn't just that upset me, because the song is what it is. It's like Mozart when he says to the king, there are just the right amount of notes. The song is what it is, but also for taking that line out and putting in another one, they wanted to take half the songwriting credit, the artist did. And now that would have made me, I would imagine, my first million. But I turned that down too. What's wrong with me, Nick?
I don't know. There's the other thing with Angel at Your Elbow, with the songwriting thing, the contest.
No, I don't think so. No. Someone entered it for me, and it came second.
No, but after that, they wanted some rights things or something.
Oh, I can't remember that. I think something. Oh, you're right. The second prize was some kind of publishing contract or something. But I can't remember what. Honestly, I don't remember that argument over that. I know I didn't go with it anyway. But that wasn't a major one. But generally speaking, that's what I often say to people. I'm sure it's affected the way things have turned out. Is that like the music means more to me than the money.
So what was the family situation here? You said that.
Well, we were all hung. There was me. There was 4 kids and just my mum, because my dad was never around. But we didn't have a home, so like sometimes it would be me and my mum in some place while the others were away being fostered, or a different combination. But we never lived in the same place. I remember a place I went and stayed for like a week or so with my mum. It was out of town somewhere. It was nothing but a huge corrugated tin shed. And we stayed there for a few days, and it was just full of beds with curtains to separate them. That was all. And lots of homeless people in there. And there was a dead body in the room, at the far end of the room. A woman, she was alive at one point, and then she died, and they just threw a blanket over her and left her there for like 2 or 3 days till the council came. And then, so we would be scattered all the time. And then I think I would have been 4 or 5 maybe, and they moved us to here, Battersea Bridge Buildings, and it was the first place where we all lived under the same roof, and so we loved it. If I look back at it now, it was about as run down as a slum could get. It was filthy, but it was a roof.
And what was the situation again with your dad?
Well, he'd never been around. I don't remember seeing him. He would pop round. You'd see him like once every few months. I think he would just pop over and maybe give my mum a couple of quid or something, but he wouldn't stay. And he never did anything with us or anything like that. He never took us anywhere.
All right.
Yeah. But and then one time, I don't know how we knew, but we knew he was leaving for the last time, And I was only a kid, and it was my dad, so I said to my mum, I want to go with him, and which upset her even more, as if she hadn't had her heart broken badly enough as it was. And so I came out and asked him, and he just blatantly said no, and drove off over the bridge there, and I came and sat here.
And what did you have any dealings with your dad after that?
Yeah, when I was older, much older, I always knew that I would go and find him. Not for any particular reason, I just didn't like that blank spot in my life. But I would never do it while my mum was alive, because it would just be too hurtful for her. So she died in '87, and I think 3 months later I decided to go and find him, and I rang a private detective, and I said, I need to find my dad, how much would it cost me? And he said, it'd be like 300 quid. So I said, 300 quid, what for? And he said, well, I've got to talk to the Salvation Army and the war pensions. So I just wrote it all down and did it myself. Saved myself £300. And I found him fairly easy. What they do is you write it is the Salvation Army who deals with it, to do with war pension. And he was still getting a war pension, so he's registered. So what they do is you write a letter and you just put his name on it, and they add the address when they get it, and send it to him, so that way, if he doesn't want to get in touch with you, or have you get in touch with him, he can decline. So I sent a letter, and I eventually got a letter back from his sister, and I went down to see her, and she showed me some pictures of my dad and told me what a great guy he was. And then eventually I got a letter from him, and I went out to visit him in Ireland, but we didn't really get along. But everybody's got their story, and when he told me about his own childhood, it was, it was pretty tough too. So. And I really felt like that sort of hole that was there, had been there for most of my life, was suddenly gone.
Do you have any?
And since then, I've always said to people who don't do it, I say you should do it, because to be this is my take on it. You can't be an adult until you stop being someone's kid. And until I got over that thing with my dad, I was always his kid. And apart from The Boy in the River, I think it did affect my early writing, because when I look at my early songs, a lot of them are about not loneliness, but more aloneness, which I don't mind.
Like what songs?
I can't, it was just like it wouldn't be in a particular song, but it was always in all the songs.
That's just
bit.
Lyrics and
it was just like always sneak a little bit of it in there. And I did actually once realise that there were lots of famous figures that I admired, like John Lennon as a songwriter, and Albert Camus, a novelist and a writer, and various others, and none of them believed in God, and they'd all been ditched by their fathers when they were young, and I always thought that was an interest. I did write a song called God and the Fatherless Son. It never saw the light of day, but I did write it.
Wrote it, but didn't record it?
I recorded it, I think, but I don't know where it is. I did it because I thought it was interesting to me that link between non-believers and disappearing fathers. Because I suppose, like, if you can't have your own dad, you're not going to call anybody else father. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. There's something in it.
Sounds like the opposite view of the Chris Brookmeyer thing that I liked in Not the End of the World, where he talks about sports figures always thanking God afterwards.
Yeah.
And of course they would believe in a higher power because they feel like they were the chosen ones.
Well, the rest of us don't. Right. I suppose there is something in it. It really did make me think. And then I thought about, and it was always at the same age, it seemed, that always around about the late 20s, early 30s, that these people ceased to believe. And it's funny because, if you can believe any of the records from biblical times, Jesus was like in his late 20s when all that stuff went off. And maybe when he was being nailed up there, I think he had a bit of a doubt himself.
It's possible.
So this is where it would have been, look, all lush and green it is now.
You really did live in a slum.
Like this section here would have been what they called it was called the old fire station, but it was turned into like small apartments, and then attached to it, running down to the corner, was Battersea Bridge Buildings, which is where I lived until I moved to Fulham Court when I was like 11 or something like that.
You want to go down here, Bill, or no?
Yeah, none of this was here.
So you live within, pretty much a stone's throw of.
My house would have been somewhere where that bush is there, something like that.
Wow.
At my house. That's stretching it a little bit. I think there were only 50 flats in the block. We were number 36. There was 25. It was one big block with two entrances, one at each other, and each entrance had 25 indoor stairwells, 25 flats with stairwells going up inside. See, and that's me, my mum and my dad on the day things went horribly wrong, He's like giving me back.
Did you commission the statue?
This kid keeps chasing me everywhere. Will you lock the door for 5 minutes? Let me get away. It looks like me. I'm actually going like, money. Well, this river in particular, and this part of this river, was was my sort of sanctuary, I guess. It was like where I came here for solace, you know. As a kid, you don't frame it in those terms. You just need, I don't know, I've always said it, I was attracted by the fact that it was going places, you know. And I would just sit, I could sit there and sort of just watch my troubles get carried away by the tide. It was great. That place there used to be a paper mill. I think it was called Phillips Paper Mill. And like, we used to go and break into it, and there would always be like bundles and bundles of comics that had not been sold, and we would get them, and you'd get all the free gifts. You know, you remember like the
They didn't really do it
school
where we
kids
were,
comics?
Okay.
They always used to come with like little gifts now and again. We used to go over and get piles and piles of them and flog them. That's in the to you Americans, that means sell. There was a shop there, and I don't know if you had it in America, but they used to sell what you call pop, like big bottles of fizzy drink, lemonade, cream soda, Coke, and all that. But if you took the bottles back, there was a refund on the bottles. Did you have that?
Yeah.
Well, me and my mates from the buildings, we would go over here where the shop was and climb into the backyard, take a couple of crates of his empty bottles, walk around the front and then get the money off and sell them back to him.
What was the story about? It's all about music and crime or something?
Yeah, it's a tale of music and burglary.
Right.
Well, that was later on that it became burglary. It was
Well, you have to practice. You have to work up to it.
These were my early years, you know. It's like when you first learn to play the guitar, you have to start with some very simple chords.
Right.
I started stealing some empty bottles and made my way up to famous bands' equipment. Right, my mum was a very heavy smoker, right? She used to smoke these cigarettes called Capstan Full Strength. They had no filter on them, and it was a big dark brown box with a picture of a muscular sailor on the front. And my mum used to smoke. So if she ever ran out of money and didn't have any, she would end up like in a quite a agitated state. So there's this one afternoon, she's like just, you know, twitching about the place, and she said, right, everybody starts searching to see if we can find money, you know. So we're like under the bed, and you know, down the back of the sofa, all the usual places. And believe it or not, we just rustled up enough money to get 10 of these cigarettes. So she said, Billy boy, take them quick, go to the newsagents. Now along that road there were 4 or 5 different newsagents. So I went to the first one and I said, have you got 10 Capstan Full Strength? She said, no, I'm out. And I went, I'll get a packet of balloons then. I didn't bother going any more shops. I just went back and they didn't have any, so I got these balloons.
How'd that go over with Mom?
Not good.
She tried to give you back to the dad again? She built that statue.
I'd forgotten about that story. But my mum would tell it to me throughout my life, because she, at the time, it's, you know, like she was tearing her hair out. I come back and had a party.
It's good.
See, like, yeah, all of this would have been it.
This is the council?
These are very recent. These have only been up like 10 years or so, I don't know. But if you go up here, see where that bus is. Right, well, where I used to go to school was straight up here. If you want, I didn't go to school. That was the way I went to school, but I never actually arrived. Because if you turn left at those lights, you go to Battersea Park. It had a huge, great fun fair and everything. So let's just go hang out there all day.
And what was the problem with school?
Believe it or not, I mean, it seems strange in this day and age, but I used to get, like, my teacher would sneak up behind me with a ruler, crack it across my knuckles because I wrote left-handed, and then she would make me switch to the right, and of course it was just unreadable. Then she would like hold it up in front of the class for everybody to laugh at. And this is the true story. The headmaster, he was an ex-military guy, and I got lost in between classes once. He punched me in the back of the head, knocked me sprawling across the gymnasium floor.
We call those the good old days in education, though.
Yeah, everything's so politically correct now. You can't punch kids in the head anymore.